Welcome to the January 9th, 2025 Conservation Commission joint meeting with the Riverfront Advisory Committee, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to do roll call, but I think what we're going to do is go around so people can introduce themselves, since we have two committees, and that way you can say your name and why you're here. Why don't you start, Zach?
Everybody, I'm Zach Angelini, and I'm a new alternate member for the Conservation Commission.
I'm Emma Fortin. I'm the school liaison.
Conservation. Chris Blackstone, Conservation Commission member.
Brian Ward, Town Council rep to the Conservation Commission.
Dave Bell, Conservation Commission.
Melissa Sharples, Vice Chair, Conservation.
Ellen Snyder, Chair of the Conservation Commission.
Julie Tyson, Conservation Commission member.
Sue Frick, Recording Secretary.
Ingrid Olberg, Riverfront Advisory Committee.
Jessica Can, alternate Conservation Commission.
Colin Lawson, alternate Conservation Commission. Joe Lamattina, Town Council representative to the Riverfront Advisory Committee.
And Sam Kenny, Chair of the Riverfront Advisory Committee, former CONCOM member, and still technically your active liaison to the Riverfront Committee. So.
Great, and just maybe the guests in the audience could say who you are.
Sure. Barbara Denna, Planning Director, Town Hall.
Lindsay Butler, Town Engineer. Richard Gauthier, Land Use Administrator and new Conservation, I forget what word we came up with, liaison? I don't know.
Kyle Pimentel, I'm the Assistant Director at the Stratford Regional Planning Commission.
Great, thanks. And Jeff Goldnoff and Tom Jones couldn't be here tonight, two regular members, so I will appoint Zach and Jess. Let's mix up. Thank you as regular members or voting members tonight. Okay, public comment. I think you're all here for conversation or listening. Okay. All right, so we're going to open this joint discussion with the Riverfront Advisory Committee. Appreciate you being here and looking forward to this conversation about the downtown riverfront. I'm going to turn this, I think, over to you, Sam, and Bart, or whoever you want to proceed.
Yeah, I'll start, I guess. So thank you for letting us crash your meeting tonight. If folks are not aware, I know the Conservation Commission was doing some work on the land use and water resources chapters for the master plan. There will also be a dedicated chapter for the riverfront area in this master plan. So that was something that kind of went back and forth a little bit in the early stages, but it's going to have its own dedicated chapter, of which the Riverfront Advisory Committee is kind of the working committee that will be working with the master plan folks that are drafting it and kind of coming up with the creation of that chapter. So part of the thought process is mostly, well, as we're doing that, let's make sure that we have some synergy with Conservation Commission, especially with Shanda Park and Heron Point being really central features down there. So I think that's kind of the overall impetus. Liz Durfee is the person who is actually physically drafting the chapter. She came to our December meeting. That was the first meeting that she showed up to as basically just kicking the tires, getting some initial feedback and information. She will be coming to our next meeting, which is Monday at 4, Monday the 13th. If anyone wants to come or listen or look at the meeting minutes or whatever. So she'll be coming at least this month, potentially in February as well, as we kind of work on drafting the chapter. So I think some of this was mostly just trying to make sure that, A, everyone was aware there is a riverfront chapter, B, that we're trying to have some concurrence with Conservation Commission and kind of, open that dialogue both tonight and for the next 2-3 months as you think of anything, bring it up here, find me, find Ellen, find someone, you know, write a manifesto to the town that is addressed to us, whatever is needed to kind of get the points across, just so we're making sure we kind of capture some input. One of the other main things that I think we wanted to kind of go over was this packet that I think most people have in front of them, and the Plan New Hampshire charrette. Just out of curiosity, how many folks knew about this or went to this? Okay, so it's kind of a little bit of a split. Is it worth for posterity just kind of going through it kind of high level?
Yeah,
Just
I think so.
I'll kind of give like a 5 to 10 minute breeze through. If there's things that are catching anyone's eyes that you want to stop and talk about, feel free to interrupt. But effectively, this was something that the town had, you know, the opportunity to participate in back in October with the design charrette put on by Plan New Hampshire, specifically for looking at the downtown Riverfront area. So they're a nonprofit organization. They've done this. I think they said this was their 80th charrette that they've put on. So it's something that, you know, Plan New Hampshire has been doing for a while. The actual group of folks that come together are a little bit ad hoc based on who's available, who has interest in that specific project or community. But I would say the town got a pretty strong draw. We had 20 or 25, you know, professionals, planners, community developers, engineers, landscape architects that showed up and kind of took an interest in this project. So there's a couple slides or handout things about Plan New Hampshire if you want to kind of skim through that for who those folks are, just as a little additional background. But effectively, we spent like the first day doing a little bit of a site walk with them. You know, started at Shanda Park, walked kind of along the riverfront up towards the mills, over through Bryant Rock, you know, pointed at Heron Point, didn't really go over there, then kind of came back through the downtown, just kind of acquainting them with the area a little bit. You know, following that, there was a couple public sessions where folks could show up, kind of give some information, you know, talk about it. They ran a couple activities for trying to draw input out of people. You know, how do you use the riverfront? What are opportunities that you see for it? So that was kind of the end of day one, and then they spent most of day two kind of working amongst themselves, sketching up some concept ideas, putting things to paper, and then basically at the end of that giving a more formal presentation effectively, which was what's in front of you right now. And that was about an hour-long presentation that was given by the design team, kind of going through some of these concepts. Oh, nice. So there actually is a slide where they have all of the folks that were involved. I'm skipping ahead like 3 or 4 here, sorry. Because I think I actually just kind of talked through about 3 or 4 of those. But the slide, you know, why Plan New Hampshire came to Newmarket, I think that's important to hit on just for a minute. You know, it wasn't by accident. That was something that, you know, the town applied for. They submitted an application, you know, to be considered for this, and were selected, you know, based on the merits of that application. So definitely something that the town worked on for a while, and, you know, was about a year in the process of coming together. Project area. This is kind of the loose confines of what was considered the downtown riverfront area. So that slide kind of shows, you know, effectively like, you know, Heron Point, the town-owned parcels where the treatment plant and DPW are, you know, the main stretch along the river, the downtown 108 corridor itself. So just an idea of when we were kind of talking riverfront and what the charrette team kind of saw as, you know, roughly the project area. The next slides, I think, are mostly just a couple photos from the site walk and from those first couple public sessions, along with a little bit of the feedback about, you know, what folks said they saw in the riverfront currently and what they wanted to see more of. kind of going to move over the, what else do we need to know ones. It's mostly just, again, this is sort of a summation of some of the feedback that was received. And then the Charrette team really kind of got to work. They drew up some really nice figures about, okay, what is the existing infrastructure? What do we see when we're out there right now? And then trying to sort of, over the course of their work, marry those concepts and those existing conditions into a couple potential opportunities. And that's what a couple of the next slides that say, opportunities are. And kind of want to just stress that again, like none of this is in stone, nothing is, happening. It's just, you have the opportunity for 20 to 25 people with no real stake other than just coming in and seeing, well, okay, well, what opportunities exist for connecting things or places or, what might the town be lacking in signage, wayfinding, things like that, and just come up with concepts kind of unburdened by what other people may know about, property rights and ownership and rights of way and other, potential barriers to making some of these concepts happen. So a couple opportunities they put to paper here and kind of on those slides. And then there's a little bit of a breakout of some of those opportunities moving through. Is there an opportunity for, doing something as grand as a pedestrian bridge to Heron Point? So again, this isn't to gauge the, feasibility of that. It's just how could this happen? Is this something that can be part of a town's future plan? What would it look like? Here's a couple examples of something, visually that could perform that linkage if there was an appetite to, link Heron Point to other town properties. There was a lot of talk about, Shanda Park. It is kind of the focal point of the riverfront, smack dab in the middle of everything. So there was just some talk about potential for park improvements. How do we try to keep an eye towards the future with sea level rise? Be cognizant of the fact that we're already seeing storm events like that, like we did, in January. So mostly just there's a few sections further on where they're showing some potential park improvements. But I think the storm surge and the sea level rise thing is more just an awareness of, well, what does the riverfront look like if some of these scenarios play out? How do we protect infrastructure concepts that we're moving forward with from, or at least have the awareness that they're going to be impacted by sea level rise. So yeah, one of the ones Mark Shanda Park proposed improvements had a few ideas, but one of the ones that actually was kind of interesting that got put on here is creating like an elevated plaza between the park sections where there currently is like that land bridge that the culverts are on. This kind of hits on a few things. It potentially gives the opportunity for, more space within the park. Physically more space for people to inhabit, which may make up, more space for art or, tie-ins to historical signage or things along the riverfront. But is kind of in a way a microcosm of how a lot of these projects sort of fall in on top of each other. To do something like that, the town's kind of investigating, potential for, do they need to replace the culverts as Moonlight Brook outlets at Shanda Park? There's critical wastewater infrastructure in that exact location. Does that need to be looked at? Does that require anything? Or can this be an opportunity to increase access to it? So kind of picking on this one specific thing, but going to a global concept that I think we'll talk a little bit more later of just, there's a lot of interest along the riverfront, a lot of projects that kind of move on top of each other and have a lot of intersection down there. And, how does the town move forward, holistically so that they're planning for all of these things at once, if and wherever possible. So a couple just further sketches of, the elevated platform, do you open up options to create, some arts tie-in? climbable structures, things like that. There was a lot of talk about potentially trying to increase dock space down there for recreation opportunities, whether that's available space for someone to tie up a boat or just additional place for people to launch kayaks, potentially a little bit more safely than the current structure. And a nice picture on one of them of one of those docking systems on the Cocheco River that actually has the handicap accessible kayak launch. Some talk about living shorelines down there along the park frontage, as well as opportunities, if they exist, to expand the town's Riverwalk. That right now is pretty limited to just the area immediately adjacent to Shanda Park. Is there an opportunity to expand that to the north? Is there opportunities to potentially expand that to the south into the town-owned properties off of Young Lane, and increase the trail network there? So a couple more things that are just kind of getting looked at. Riverwalk expansion, basically just trying to increase the contiguous route that people can walk along the riverfront. They got a couple pictures of one. I think the first image here is down in Exeter, and then the other one's in Portsmouth, just if anyone's familiar with those areas. There's also a little talk about a couple, trying to maximize or capitalize on a couple spaces around the dam itself. There's a small, area that the design charrette team kind of looked at and called, Dam Park, which is by the Fish and Game Fish Ladder. Is that an opportunity for potential, pocket park or placemaking area to kind of tie that end of the riverfront together with other things? Also potentially, is there an opportunity to, create a kayak launch on the north side of the dam, on the freshwater side of the river as well? So just, again, a couple additional ideas with that. One of the other ideas, or the kind of last concept that's in here, is potential for maybe making part of South Main Street as 108 and South Main kind of come together there into a one-way. That was interesting. We had folks from New Hampshire DOT involved with this, so them and the landscape architects took it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I consider that outside the purview of the Riverfront Committee, but maybe something that the town will be pursuing on their own, if that makes sense from a transportation perspective. So they came up with some really nice sketches, some really nice configurations for how that might work. But I'm going to kind of gloss over it here. And then the last few images are just kind of talking about, again, is there a potential to create maybe like a pop-up space or something a little bit more functional in any of the downtown corridor areas, for a farmer's market, for music opportunities, art show, whatever it is. There's some talk about the overall, parking assets, electrical vehicle charging opportunities, and overall kind of signage and wayfinding, which I think is something that's been mentioned a few times, but, one of the things that they were kind of pointing out, or that was being discussed, was, some of this may just be a lack of people understanding, where things are, where can you park, what is available to the public as parking areas, and really as it comes to the riverfront too, what's available for recreational opportunities. If you don't live in town, do you know where these things are and what's available to you? So potentially some low-hanging fruit in terms of just increasing signage and consistency of what that signage looks like. So I'm going to stop there because that was a rapid fire. Does anyone have any kind of questions or thoughts on just what the charrette was, or anything else that I guess was discussed, as part of that effort?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just curious, going forward, if there's aspects in this that like the Conservation Commission as a group really love, like, are there steps for us, like, helping push that forward, or where does it kind of go from here?
I think it comes to just input. So, you know, ultimately, so the other thing, in addition to the charrette, we've had the opportunity to have a few riverfront-centric questions on some of the master plan stuff. And I think what's been very, clear to the committee through the charrette process, through the master plan responses, is everyone loves the riverfront. I think people potentially have different ideas of what's involved down there. You know, what comes next, or how does a space get utilized, or something like that. So, I think our committee shouldn't necessarily be the sole arbiters of that. We have our own opinions about things that I think we like. I don't want to speak for you, Joe and Ingrid, but, we talk about things we like and if they make sense and talk amongst ourselves. But that's part of it, is trying to create that dialogue to other communities and other committees and commissions of like, well, what do you guys want to see, or what do you think about a couple certain things? So there are a couple specific items that, I think we kind of brought here potentially for talking to you guys about, that we can get into it at some point. But whatever you want to do, whether it show up as public comment or, the committee can write a letter to us, whatever you want to do. But I think we're open and willing to hear any input folks have. Because the more input we hear, the more times that I think the town is hearing similar things, or we're hearing that people want the same things, well, then maybe that's starting to become a theme.
And then once those like themes bubble up, what's like the process from there? Like who makes the decision in the end?
I still think it's a ways from anything really happening. So I think the other thing, or why the timing is prudent now, is the development of the master plan chapter for the riverfront should hopefully set the basis for kind of what the town thinks. What is the vision for the riverfront, or what are some of the key points that we want to hit or get across? Because the master plan also turns into a tool as you ultimately develop more specific projects to show, well, hey, CIP committee, like, this is our idea for a project, this is in line with the goals of the master plan, we'd like to consider it further. So that's kind of why laying the groundwork now, I think, has value for what folks collectively think that chapter should be trying to say about overall goals.
Got it. That makes sense.
I think what would be helpful tonight for us to talk about some specifics, like what do people, of the things that were presented in the charrette, or and we should talk specifically about Shanda Park and Heron Point. We can do that in a minute. But I think one of the things to think about, I think Sam and I have talked about it, is because we have certain responsibilities, and Riverfront has certain responsibilities. They're an ad hoc committee, and then other people in town, planner, we have staff. And so does there need to be another entity that helps implement the grand vision? I think we're not there yet, but I think that's something that might come out of the master plan process. I don't know if you guys have thoughts about that, but I don't think we have the mechanism right now for the overarching group to implement. We all have pieces, but maybe that will come once we figure out what we want.
Part of that was going to be my question, like who's writing the grants and who's, figuring out where the money's coming from and who's building things and how things get.
I think it comes from what we advocate for. Like if we have this grand vision that we really want to implement in town, and there's lots of us that want it, then you put that in and say we need a commission or a board or something, a mechanism for those people then to work with staff and implement it.
Yeah, so I know something that we just kind of recently started in Ingrid and Joe, after I keep talking, like please jump in, but something we just kind of started talking at our committee level was kind of along that line, that recreation has interest down there, public works has interest, the public obviously has an interest, environmental services with the wastewater. There's so many different parts coming together, and I think we've kind of started talking about trying to lay the groundwork for the riverfront to be something that gets considered by the town for a holistic plan. And
Sam, I have a question. So who from the mill building community is involved in showing support? I mean, that seems like a big component to me, that there's got to be buy-in from that community, that, that whole, changing that whole, riverfront is pretty dramatic for that community.
It is, and I don't want to gloss over that part. I think if there's a group of people, I think that have probably shown the most trepidation about what's being discussed right now, it's the folks that live, and that's their backyard, and that live in those mills and are right there. So it's an objective. I don't know. It may be one of those cases where, with just how many people are involved, it seems like a situation where pleasing everyone may or may not be possible. But getting people to the table and trying to figure out, well, okay, what are your concerns? What are your goals? That's something that is an ongoing process. We've been getting more and more input from the people that live in the mills. One of our members who couldn't be here tonight does live in one of those buildings, so we've tried to kind of maintain a little bit of that connection as well. But you hit the nail on the head. It's easier if you're just recreating there for 2 hours a week to have a different set of concerns than if you are living there full time.
Right. With a lot of additional people moving in and out of that space.
Yes. Yep. So there has to be opportunities for mutually beneficial outcomes. What those are, not known yet.
I think in terms of looking at what the chapter might involve, I think for me, top things are connectivity, the trails that are proposed there and the ways to connect the different spaces down there. I know the bridge across the river is an ideal thing, and that would be really cool. Maybe something to strive for in the future, but I think, making the space more green, the park down there really stuck out to me, having like art be mixed with play space for kids, and performance space as well. I think that just brings more livelihood to the downtown character of Newmarket.
I really like the bridge. I know that's probably like, I don't know, but I was curious if anyone has are there concerns with that, or I don't know, the impact of that? I'm curious.
We can talk about Heron Point, but do you want to?
I mean, I think the big thing about bridge is, well, one, there's cost, but two, I think is boats. Some people bring boats in. But I saw one of the things in here was just that instead of walking through the park, I don't know what page it is, but instead of building a little path on the road that goes right down the Heron Point instead of having to go through the trail park, I think that's a great idea. Don't really have to build anything new, and that's something that could be done and budgeted today. Not as scenic and not as direct, but again, if we could build a bridge, I think it'd be cool, but if we're just talking about making it easier for people to get in there without disturbing the people who live there, I think this little trail here just going would, I really wish there was a page number, I'm sorry.
And Brian, is that like a boardwalk trail along the?
I think it's through John's.
Through John's.
It is through a private, currently private parcel.
Yeah. If we could get the owners to sign off on it, then that'd be something we could do.
And one of the things I like about that is that the parking is there, whereas if we put a bridge farther down, people are still going to have to walk from someplace where they can park, because the parking is not going to be right there next to the bridge.
Yeah,
I think that path would be very scenic, actually.
if there's a bridge, I know there was at one point, not this past summer, but the summer before, there was a barge that came through the river to do some work on.
Yeah, there was a
on
sewage
something,
pipe
so-
broken in the river.
Yeah, so if there's
bigger.
work like that needing to be done, I'm not sure how a bridge would sustain.
It would have to be pretty high. So one of the
Yeah.
areas of launching it down kind of where it's drawn here is that elevationally, it's actually kind of high on both sides of the river, so potentially you could go over, but it is navigable for a portion of this channel, you know, downstream at the dam, so it's definitely a consideration. Yeah, I love the concept of a bridge just as an engineer more than anything else, but I think it has the strongest opinions of most of these things that have been talked about. And not only capital, but also long-term upkeep. There's some downsides to it,
And then
unfortunately.
also, I guess, like with the bridge, then what would the plan for Heron Point be? If we're going to make that investment, then developing that area more would be something to consider, I would think.
Yeah, and I think that's part of kind of the discussion, too, is, you know, what does the commission think about Heron Point? Obviously, we're not trying to, you know, build attractions over there, but some iterations of comments we've received throughout this process is people saying things like, well, Heron Point's like a bird sanctuary, do we even want to promote foot traffic over there? I don't personally understand that. I also know, like, the commission just invested good money in kind of upgrading the trails and the systems over there, like, but I don't know, what do you think? It seems like it's an underutilized parcel.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happened is the gate's locked right now, so people can't drive and walk in, so it's sort of sitting there now with not a lot of access, unless people walk all the way from downtown or park at Lamprey Street. So we have the issue of a locked gate, and we are going to be meeting with the community in a couple weeks to talk about the boundary survey, so we're going to talk to them a little bit about the access that we currently have on the road and the gate, because the gate is there for their protection essentially, because you're not supposed to be over there except from sunup to sundown, so the gate's there. So we have an opportunity to talk to them and sort that out, but that's one access point, and right now it's limiting us. The trail seems like the best option, but it's through private property, through at least 2 private properties, probably. So we kind of have to decide if that's something we really think is a really good idea, then we need that guidance to then go talk to the landowners and say, this is really important to us. We would really like to work with you on putting a trail through there. And then the third piece is the bridge. If you read the deed, you had it in your packet, it doesn't, the property is there for open space. We can't develop it. We can have trails and we can have foot traffic. It's a little uncertain, and I don't know if it's to the town attorney yet, but there was going to be some review on whether you could actually put a bridge, because it's a structure. And structures in deeds often have very specific limitations, and so it's not clear from the deed if this structure would be allowed by the deed. It would need a legal interpretation. It doesn't say it can't happen, but we would need to decide if we thought that was an option, we should get a legal opinion on whether it's even feasible. Which wouldn't be I don't think that would be very complicated, because it's a pretty brief deed. But I'll just read the 2 purposes for which the property was conveyed to the town through for conservation purposes. But it's really 2 purposes: to be retained forever in its undeveloped, scenic, and open space conditions. And undeveloped typically means houses and commercial and that sort of thing. And for the enjoyment of the general public and for the education of the local community, and specifically the youth of the town of Newmarket. So to me, that points to we really need to figure out a way to get people over there, because it is for people to go over and enjoy it, and for the youth especially, and for education. And I think the trails and the interpretive materials we have points to that, but right now we are pretty limited. We're not really being able to, I think, fulfill that in the way it states. So,
Ellen, is the access, the gate is up, so you can't drive down there, but does the trailer park allow access through, like, walking access? I mean, is there anything legal that gives people the right of way to go in there?
So we have an access deed to travel on Meadow Drive off of Bay Road.
Yep.
And we have an access deed to cross, which is actually private land, essentially where the gate is.
Yeah.
And it's from sunup to sundown. So not at night, no overnight use. The overnight use is in the deed for the town's deed, but the access is. And I was just looking at that because usually a deed says in perpetuity or successors, and the road access was owned by the people that gave the right-of-way access. And I don't think that family owns the road anymore. I think the Heron Point community owns it. So it's actually kind of interesting whether that's in perpetuity, this access easement, and that might be another legal interpretation we should get. But, so we have it, public has the right of way, but it's from sunup to sundown, which would be if we had a trail, that would, the park is open from sunup, the sanctuary is open from sunup to sundown, so that fits. So yeah, maybe people can, this is us. We need to say what options we think make sense and what we should pursue. So, and we don't have to agree. I think we just pull our ideas together because.
Well, I think that the concept of a bridge is really appealing to go all the way over. But financially, it's a huge, huge cost. And I love the idea of if there was a possibility of having a walking trail that went around by Spears property and found their way to Heron Point, even if some of it was over the water. The expense would be, again, increasing as you go into the water with pylons and stuff like that. But there may be, if it was 12 feet wide, allow access that would stay away from those houses as far as you can. You still have, I think a couple of them have docks out there, so you have that issue of going past their docks. But we use that. I live on Lamprey Street, and we go down and use that dock at least a couple times a week during the season. And to be able to go down and access a walking trail or pathway to get out to Heron Point would be fantastic. And you could get people around. I don't know how you would cross the river where the dam is to go around, or you'd have to go around the buildings. But I love that idea of, if we're not going to do a major bridge across, then getting a walkway up without having to go up through the park.
Others, I think, Jess, you mentioned, you weren't sure about the bridge for various reasons, or water traffic?
Just because of what I've observed in the past, but I think the trail system and developing that and making it more of a recreational area would be great. And if we build the bridge, then what's the plan after that to do that so that people can have more recreation there? So it's a nice idea for the bridge, but then what happens next? The waterfall effect, right?
And what's the maintenance cost and the long-term liability of people being on there and worrying about winter? Does it get too icy to use and seasonal usage?
Others? Yeah, no, this is us, so speak up.
I've got something to say.
Yeah, feel free.
I have something to say. Okay. It's my personal opinion is that one of the first things that need to be done is addressing Moonlight Brook, the culvert there, the pollution. To me, that's the number one priority there. And I like the concept of a deck over that area that expands the park and allows sunlight to get into the shoreline part of it. That's my personal.
Good, thank you. Do you want to?
That's something we hadn't thought about, is the whole Moonlight Brook side of it, the whole reason the conversation kind of gets started. I think if you're out for a walk and you're trying to get on the trails to exercise and enjoy the outdoors, then the extra 200 yards that it's taking you to get to the trailhead shouldn't be a deterrent. So parking in the parking lot that's already there on Bay Road at the corner of Lamprey Street should be an option. And maybe that's where the wayfinding comes in. Maybe we make that, just through signage of some sort, part of the trail, you know, the trail system. Yeah.
So less interested in the bridge, or?
Not interested in the bridge at all. No. I think it's, I mean, unless we can get a grant for 100% of it, including upkeep and, you know, insurance and all that sort of thing, I think it's a major expense for the town on the heels of what we're all living with the school system and all that. I just think it's an unnecessary expense.
Unless we got 100% coverage.
There you go.
Yeah, you can find that.
Dear Alex.
Some wealthy donor.
Yeah. Thanks for that. David, do you have any?
So, Melissa, can I ask you a question? So, when you say parking at the end of Lamprey Street, are you talking about access then to Heron Point would be going up
Would
Bay
be going
Road
up Bay Road into
and
the,
through the park?
through the
and
park
then-
like you would if you were driving there, if the gate was
Right.
open. Same thing.
Do we know how far that is exactly?
200 yards.
Is it to
Max.
go from all the way down Bay Road and down Lamprey Park and into the?
Must be farther than that.
It's gotta be farther. Driving it seems a pretty good distance when I've driven into there.
It's probably a quarter mile.
Yeah,
So
at least.
if you're walking it from
Lamprey Street, parking?
Lamprey
It's a
Street
ways.
parking,
It's probably a quarter mile to get to
Yeah,
the parking
sure.
lot. Yeah.
so tack a quarter mile onto your outdoor environment walk.
Yeah, but if we could shorten it, if we could get in there quicker, that might be nice.
I feel like the trail around sounds like a pretty nice compromise kind of between the options.
It's a half a mile,
Trail round.
so that's a
That
good
was
distance.
like- That would wrap around, not a bridge over.
David, do you have any thoughts on?
Not on the Heron Point issue, but there's something that's always bothered me with the parking down here at the, on the park itself.
Chanda
And
Park?
that is,
Chanda Park or Heron Point?
Shanna Park
Yeah.
across the way. And that is the fact, you pull in that parking lot, there's absolutely nothing from allowing a car to roll right into the brook. There should be a line.
Oh, yeah, in the
of-
Moonlight Brook.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of issues with
yeah.
the parking.
Hopefully, nobody's done it yet,
Yeah.
but hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about Chanda Park in a second. We'll come
Oh,
back to
okay.
Chanda Park, but no, that's great. Good that you, Brian, you want to say any more? Chris?
Yes. I think the initial concept, oh, a bridge. Then I think the reality about the tide, there's already enough of a sticky wicket about you're in a kayak, how experienced are you? Do you have to watch out, when can I kayak out, can I kayak back? Only kayak half as far as you think you can kayak because you have to come back against the tide. Da, 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 da. I think the people that have boats or want to use boats don't want to have to reckon with, when can I get underneath that bridge? It's already a bugaboo when you have to do it in the Martha Who's-What Bridge in Portsmouth, when that bridge is going up and down for boating. And I think just scale that down. Why would we inflict that upon boaters that we're trying to say, here's some recreational opportunities? So I think if you were to plot us on a line, I'm probably farther against the bridge than one of my esteemed colleagues to my right, because I think it's actually, as much as I've traveled to different places in the world to see bridges of historic interest and their shapes and engineering feats, I think a bridge there would simply be what it's going to sound ugly, but I think it'd be an eyesore no matter what it looks like. You have there, you can sit and see like the, not condors, the cormorants, just sitting on the moorings and drying their wings and yada yada. I think the next thing we're going to hear is like, oh my God, there's pigeons shit on the bridge. I should walk across the bridge, blah, blah, blah. I mean, why would you set yourself up for an expensive problem? I just view it as a problem, in spite of like how fantastic it would be to just walk. If you're out walking on Heron Point, I don't think adding a couple of football fields to the distance you're walking is going to make it a big. Also, I think walking would increase, like, oh, off we darn, there's good juju. I can't live without these cardinal earrings or whatever it is. I think it's going to make people it ties that whole nature thing with the downtown thing and gives you something to do along with the walk. And to say park and buzz bomb in, see a bird, buzz bomb back out, oh my God, there's a drilling man, get back in your car, now I'm going to go to Exeter Heat. That just feels like we'd be creating more of a problem than solving a problem.
Good thought.
Like buzzing into the Grand Canyon, great, saw it, boom, picture, boom, great, okay, back in the car. Gotta get to the souvenir shop.
Got
That's
it.
what it feels like to me.
That's good. Good imagery. Emma, did you want to weigh in on this?
I just think that, like, adding a bridge would be effective, but I kind of agree with these two ladies on how, like, the cost, I just think that the cons kind of outweigh the pros, and yes, it would be great, but good legs, you can walk, it's not that bad.
Jack, do you want to add anything more? Thank you, Emma.
Writing that? 2 legs,
Yeah,
we
I
can
think-
walk.
It's definitely interesting. I kind of agree that I think about more the eyesore element, because it is a really beautiful like landscape view when you're looking out. But I do think that like increased connectivity, I think would be a major plus. So I lean towards the wraparound like solution.
We also can't discount that, those 2 boulders that are out there. That has historical significance to the town. You know, those things have been out there since we've been here.
Good. Anybody else want to weigh in on the, I think we captured, did everybody weigh in on that? Yeah. Well, I think the consensus is sort of leaning toward the wraparound and maybe moving forward with some conversations with landowners in that north end there. So maybe we can reconvene Colin and Bart and see where we want to go with that conversation.
Has Mr. Spear been in touch at all?
No.
Yeah.
So. Okay, that's good. Good conversation. Let's talk about Shanda Park a little bit. There was a whole pile of stuff in your packet because I thought it was helpful for you just to have. And if you were able to look at it, there essentially is four parcels that the town acquired in 1982, 84. It got a land and water conservation grant, which is a state grant, comes from federal money. And it helped acquire 4 parcels, which, as far as I can tell, it's Shanda Park proper across the bridge over Mile Brook and that part of the park, where the boat parking is, and also where the other parking is, I think. As far as I can read. Where the trailer bar, and also the other parking, I think. And it was purchased, the Land and Water Conservation Fund was to help, part of the project was, I don't know how much funds from the grant went to actually the acquisition, but to acquire the 4 parcels, to do a boat launch, and this parking for boats. And there was some private funding from Salmon Unlimited and the NCDC, which was the Mill Development Group, right? They were involved in helping put this together. So I think there's some interesting things about the history of how that area was acquired, and it was for conservation and parking for boat launch. I don't quite understand the other public parking that's happening down there. I'm not really sure how that fits into this original concept. And then in 2005, the Conservation Commission, this was one of the few properties that, with Conservation Commission at Heron Point, but there were commissioners at the time on the Conservation Commission, and there was events happening down on the Lamprey River and at Shanda Park, and they were very interested in taking over the maintenance of Shanda Park. And so the council gave the responsibilities of maintenance to the Conservation Commission in 2005. I think one thing we should discuss is, and DPW, Department of Public Works, does most of the maintenance. And we do some when we have, Newmarket Cares Day or help with students or others. But it's a little bit of a different property than the other properties we steward, and like Wigan Farm and, some of the bigger conservation properties, Heron Point Sanctuary. This is more of a park, I think we would agree, and it's obviously central to the Lamprey or the riverfront. And so I'd like us to have a conversation about, and we don't have to decide it now, but whether the Conservation Commission really is the appropriate entity to manage Shanda Park, given all the other responsibilities we have with conservation easement and larger conservation parcels, and given that this is going to be a central part in Moonlight Brook and all that, is there a different entity that should really be responsible for Shanda Park? To open it to conversation.
Off the top of my head, I would say Riverfront Advisory Committee, because that's, I mean, that's exactly in the name, and that's one of their big things. So that, yeah, if there's anyone else who's going to take it, that would be my first go.
When I read it, I was wondering, what does that mean, that the committee is responsible for managing and maintaining? Does that mean I have to get out there and shovel?
So
Yeah,
I think that is part of the conversation. So fair or not, some of the potentially either within the master plan survey comments or charrette feedback or some combination of both. You know, take it with a grain of salt, but there have been a few comments along the lines of like, well, why should the town invest in more things? Why are we considering more opportunities down there? Like Shanda Park like needs work and we don't even maintain the stuff that we have. So, you know, part of me just kind of scoffs at that, but I do think it strikes out a little bit of a more core issue that I think Elton's getting at is like, well, if there is a major maintenance effort to be done, if we need to relay all of the hardscape down there, or we want to talk about taking out a land bridge and culverts and putting something back, like, is that us? Are we the ones going out and doing that? Are we contracting someone to do that on our behalf? Is that the proper forum? So I think that's part of the discussion is, you know, is it better suited with, you know, the recreation department, with the public works, not the Conservation Commission, a volunteer committee to be the boots on the ground maintainers of the downtown park?
I think one thing, if you listed a bulleted list of all the things that come under your question, Ingrid, about what does it mean to steward and maintain, or what were the two words?
Especially maintenance.
Maintenance and whatever. It might seem minuscule compared to, like you say, revamping hardscape or something, but there should be an entity that says, oh, there's an application for a wedding ceremony on Thursday the 10th. Who approves or says whatever? And oh, by the way, we don't want lighting, we don't want balloons, what can you do or not do? No fireworks at the ceremonies or whatever. Because we do get, the Conservation Commission right now does get them for celebration of life, or weddings, or commitment ceremonies, or lobster feeds, or there have been a couple of fundraiser things, and although they weren't for private people's money, they were for fundraising for thus and such organization, and that paperwork comes through the Conservation Commission. So that's an element of it as well. I think I would like to see somebody, an organization that already has the capacity to, you know, rec department does have to say, we need a bulldozer to come in and bring in this many tons of linear feet of whatever, or tons of whatever. They have that already and the kinds of things they do, so it seems to fit there. But I think also the human side of things could stay here because we're stewarding wildlife as well as the human interaction with the wildlife or the landscape.
I would say the rec department and public works also came to mind first for me as well, but then, like you're saying, the human side of those. But, you know, rec could also make the call on if they could have a wedding ceremony or something there too. Another piece of it, as an advisory committee, is the Riverfront, is there any like foreseen end to that advisory committee? Or like I know it, like is it in perpetuity? Like will you always be, or like that's something that popped into mind. As an advisory committee, is there any point where there might be, okay, we've really done our job, there's not much, so then who does it fall to at that point?
Yeah, I mean, there absolutely is. Like, there isn't like an expiry on the committee, but like, I don't know, I don't want to do it forever. Like, well, at some point, you know, if you know, the master plan's been put together, goals have been implemented, I would hope that the town is successful enough in realizing a vision that there is an end date.
And then it would fall to the town council, the Conservation Commission to kind of play out those ideals that you set forward, right? Yeah. So it doesn't really make sense to me to hand off Shanda Park to an advisory committee that could someday dissolve and hand off
Their advice was done and given and
and fall back to us. Yeah. And Shanda Park is more of like it feels more of like a recreation site where we might go to fish or put our kayak in or go see music down there, that the rec department might have more ideas of what could happen there.
I guess I'm on the hyper-passive side of it, and just the whole sit and the nothingness has to, somebody has to watch out for the nothingness. You
Yes.
can't just be David Carroll talking about turtles and saying, like, you bought this land, now humans can't even walk there. That's the farthest extreme that he takes it, but, you know, the nothingness is fine as well.
Other thoughts about Shanda?
I think, I don't know, I think from what everybody's saying and all the perspective, I think it does make sense to have almost a partnership between at least conservation and recreation, if not DPW as well.
So, from someone who does a lot of the stewardship on our lands, my personal perspective is we don't have the capacity to steward Shanda Park. And so we may have the capacity to review permits, although I'm not sure why to be honest, I'm not sure why we have that versus some other entity in town. It's not like we have any special understanding of whether a wedding should be there or not. So I personally don't think we have the capacity to steward Shanda Park. I also don't think it should go to Riverfront. I think you would have the same situation. So I think it brings up a little bit broader perspective or picture that we can't necessarily address totally tonight, but that we have these places that are parks, that are smaller, pocket parks or things like Shanda Park. Shopmeyer Park is slightly different because it's an easement, and we don't steward that. But I think there's these entities, these places in town that need some other mechanism for who is responsible for their stewardship. Now, DPW does do a lot at Shanda, but they're not in charge. We're supposedly in charge. And so there's this, a little bit of not much is happening when things should happen. So I think we have to be somewhat realistic about what our capacity is. There is a line item in our conservation fund that could be passed on to some other entity, whether it went back to DPW or the rec department or somebody else, but I just wanted to share that perspective.
I imagine from discussions earlier, people can rent that out and use that for a wedding or that sort of thing?
It's just that, I mean, rented, it's just you get a permit from us to.
Oh, so there's no charge for using it. I was just thinking, does it make sense that it's under the Public Works and they get the funding to help support the maintenance?
But there is no funding.
Yeah.
All it does is say, for instance, you're having a celebration of life there, but I have coincidentally said to my granddaughter's 9th birthday, hey, now we're at my house, I'm only a little block away, let's go down here and, you know, see some whatever. Oh, but wait, you have the permission to be there and I'm rather intruding. So it kind of gives some oomph to the people that went through the permitting to say, like, I kind of went dibs on this spot.
This sounds like it might be best as a recreation. I mean, I pointed you guys out because that's, but if you're not going to be in perpetuity, the next thing would make sense would be recreation, because like as we're describing, there are going to be situations where people want to rent it out for events, town's going to want to reserve it, and it makes sense that this will, as a recreational area, that they would be in charge of that and add it into their own plan for how they use their own current recreational space if we don't have the capacity for it. So.
Yeah, there's probably two pieces. One is the permit and getting to use it. And matter of fact, the people that use it the most is the recreation department for the concerts in the park. And so we're giving permission for them to use it when it's sort of like, well, it's a town park. Why don't you guys? Yeah, so there's that piece, and then there's a stewardship. So maybe DPW does stewardship and the rec does the permitting. And I mean, we can still provide, if we did sort of recommend a change, and again, we don't have to decide this tonight, but we could come up with, because there are no criteria for how we think Shanda Park should be used. So when we review a permit, we don't really have criteria, and then we've talked about,
Asterisk items.
yeah, little things we do respect if you don't do this or that. So we could compile that and provide it to the rec department or DPW or whoever at council, whoever. So, yeah.
The rec department's already doing rentals of kayaks there. And, They're the
Exactly.
ones that are organizing a lot of the things on Friday nights or whatever, so trying to make sense that they would be the ones that would control it.
And on that, we meet monthly, so you could get
Right.
quicker approval if it was going through the rec department rather than waiting when the Conservation Commission is going to meet next.
Yeah, no, I think the commission's done a really good job, doing what they can, and especially through some of the Newmarket Cares days and the volunteer days and all that, but if you need to do a $50,000 maintenance project down there, like, are we renting an excavator? Like, are we dumping material and spreading it? Are we setting, like, there just seems to be a limitation for what a volunteer committee is in part of, and if we're gonna ask the town to support an initiative like that anyway, are they better off?
I think that
Just
leads
having it
handily
directly.
back to what Joe started, is without fixing Moonlight Brook, it's really, it's not, the foundation is just not there for it to be lovely. I mean, I overlook it and, whatever, I don't not go there because of it, but on the other hand, am I gonna put it in a brochure with Exeter Chamber of Commerce, come to Shanda Brook?
Yeah.
I mean, come to Shanda Park / Moonlight, nothing, like it's not, without that taken care of, it's not a thing.
Do we, if I could ask Lindsay, do we have an update on what's happening in Moonlight Brook? Is there a study going on? Do you want to give us a quick update if there is anything?
Yes, Lindsay Butler, town engineer. We are working with Geosyntec consultants to do investigation on the stormwater systems within the Moonlight Brook watershed. So they will be starting, and we kicked off the project in November, very recently. And they will be gearing up to have some crews out to do stormwater sampling at outfalls from the pipe networks that discharge into Moonlight Brook, up to, I believe it's 8 of those outfalls, and then investigation through the networks to see if we can identify and work to eliminate any specific illicit discharge or illicit connections there. So that is part of that work that will be conducted in the spring through summertime of this year, and that'll help us eliminate sources from the municipal stormwater systems, so then we can continue working with the Lamprey River Advisory Committee on the open channel areas and some of the pollutants and sampling that's going on there.
So if we pursue the living shoreline idea, is the vision that those culverts that are discharging right under the walkway, those would come out and we do some different bridge there? Are we down that path yet, or how?
We are not down that path yet. The culverts aren't actually part of the stormwater investigation. Is more the individual pipe networks or the kind of isolated pipe networks that discharge into the brook, and that's through the whole watershed. So that goes up into the area behind like Durrell Woods and behind the schools, through the community center facility or the like parks and area, and then down to the railroad street and under the railroad. So it's investigating all through that whole area. It's not actually getting to the hydraulics and issues with the culverts. That would be a separate issue and study that we'd like to do. We're kind of trying to do this in a working from up to down situation, so we can try to remove or do what we can to address the pollution in the watershed, then address the culverts, and I think there's a lot, like Sam said, there are a few different elements to that, because there's a coordination with sewer and environmental services, because that's a pretty important piece of infrastructure through there.
And can someone just update the group, because I don't know if everybody understands what's happening with shifting the sewer intake to the main wastewater treatment plant? Just explain that some of, right now,
At
the
Creighton
private haulers are bringing it right next to Shanda Park, essentially, right? Yeah, could you just explain the how it works?
I can try.
There.
So the Creighton Street pump station is what's located right next to Shanda Park. That is currently where the septage receiving is. So that's the septage haulers can bring septage there and discharge it into our system for treatment. The project I think you're referring to is septage receiving, would basically be creation of a new septage receiving station that would be up at the wastewater treatment plant and on Young Lane. So those septage haulers would not come to the Creighton Street pump station down Creighton Street. They would come through Young Lane into the wastewater treatment facility and discharge there, so that the septage can be treated there. And I don't have specifics on the timing of that because that's environmental services project, so I can't really speak to that, but I know that's in design and in the works.
And my understanding is it could free up some of that frontage then, because the trucks aren't going in all the time and turning around. There might be an opportunity to incorporate that into the living shoreline, or maybe even some open space, I think.
Yes, we have broached that subject with Sean in discussing the living shoreline extending from Shanda and the Moonlight Brook Channel onto the Creighton Street pump station area. And that's, in my opinion, one of the ideal locations because there's not a lot of foot traffic, and that's best for living shorelines when they don't get walked on or kayaks dragged over them or anything like that. So that is part of it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Lindsay? Appreciate that. It's helpful. Bart, do you want to weigh in on our conversation about Shanda Park and stewardship or anything like that? Your thoughts, or what do you think?
Sure, yeah. Bart, Planning Director. I think it's a conversation. I do have to agree the general consensus that I think there's change needs to happen. Personally, I think it's probably a town department that does the maintenance. It makes the most sense, whoever that may be. Permitting, probably town council, I would think would be the best, maybe twice a month. Like if it's like a big event or something, like an outdoor event, or recreation maybe for anything else. I think that makes the most sense. I would, if it was my preference, I'd like to see the Riverfront Advisory Committee become a committee. I think that may be something to consider. Being, stewards of the riverfront, having a special entity or a specific entity that focuses on that. Because it's not just the riverfront, it's also the downtown. So everything that incorporates, the riverfront. So I don't know, something to consider, I think. So it's just a couple thoughts.
Good. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. What do you think, Sam? Do we want to talk about some of the things? You want more input on? I think we didn't really talk about the trail specifically. We've talked about trying to get over to Heron Point, and then there's the opportunity to go south all the way down to the DPW on New Road and over that way. And so I think that's all part of this idea of a trail system and wayfinding and seeing if there's private landowners we have to go through. We need to have those conversations.
No, I thank you guys for your time, and I know you probably have other stuff on your agenda and don't want to be here until 10 o'clock. So it's mostly, I think, if anything, like maybe look through the charrette, think about some of the stuff that we talked tonight. Like this isn't your only chance to provide input. Just like send something, like show up at the Riverfront Committee, send something to Ellen, she can forward to me, whatever. But like any input I think is good input, I think kind of leaving here, it's okay, people aren't opposed to promoting additional foot traffic at Heron Point, but the bridge has got some warts, maybe we try to make do with our access or see if there's an opportunity for private, negotiation with the private parcels and to make some other access from Bay Road. Like, great, like that's good input. So I think that's the stuff that helps us the most when we meet, is not just talking about what we think, because we already know that, but starting to assimilate other people's thoughts and opinions as well. I mean, Joe, Ingrid, what do you guys think?
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think
we don't, just want to say, we obviously can't make decisions or whatever. Anything that we do at Shanda Park and the riverfront, whatever, has to involve Conservation Commission, just keep you involved in anything that we're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if we didn't really necessarily state it clearly, but I think people can weigh in, but I think we agree with you that Moonlight Brook is a really high priority. Like that's like one of the highest, is to clean up Moonlight Brook and fix that outlet. And the whole parking, Brian said you can drive right, like practically into the brook there. It's a pretty ugly spot. So that whole picture, I think, would be great to improve that. And then some trail connectivity. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I would just reiterate the trail connectivity and waypoint finding. I think that's the most important part that everyone really agrees on, is just making sure people know how to get there. And, Heron Point is a beautiful spot. I've only walked there once.
Oh my gosh.
Admit, but it was absolutely gorgeous, and making sure people know it's there and how to get there. I think increase in foot traffic is okay to get people outside in Newmarket, and increasing recreation at the waterfront. I saw access to that fish and game point down there, just making it more than just a shopping and eating strip, making it a place where people are coming and hanging out outdoors in the warmer months.
Yeah. No, thanks. It was mostly just, try to start seeing what some of the ideas were, what the Conservation Commission thinks, and to start broaching that subject about Shanda Park, because it just seems like something is coming for the park. Some larger infrastructure project is coming for it, via Moonlight Brook, just general park improvement, whatever. And, is the time to move that out now to the town at large. So.
I would agree with, I think Bart, that, for making the Riverfront Advisory, it needs to be an entity that can help move this forward. So making it non-ad hoc and making it a regular commission or board or whatever it's supposed to be called seems like a good idea.
And maybe just implementation of the goals within the chapter. It becomes its charter or whatever it is, but.
I was even thinking like renaming it something that encompasses all of downtown as well, like Bart was saying. It's that whole area. It's not just the riverfront, but the business sector, all the parts of it. But I agree with that.
And the membership obviously would reflect that. Any other final comments or questions or input for the Riverfront Advisory?
No, it's a small point, but you said, you don't want to be here till 10 o'clock. That clock is still an hour off.
I know. Well, I did figure that out. So there's no way it's 9 o'clock.
It's a really conversations, I know.
If we want to end early, that's still cool.
Yeah, no, just, I'm with you. I'm pushed. So.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming and sharing all that with us.
Yeah, nice to meet you folks as a group.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Think about it. Let us know what you think, if anything else comes to mind.
Okay, we are going to move along on ours. So we're moving into a master plan discussion, and we're going to talk about the Land Water Conservation chapter, which is the one we're leading, and also the Recreation chapter a little bit. So we'll start with Land and Water Conservation. Bart?
So today, this evening, what you have in front of you have two documents. One is a vision for the Land and Water Conservation chapter. It's a draft vision. Stratford Regional Planning Commission put together by synthesizing the current water master plan chapter and the open space, because the idea is putting them together in one. So those two visions. And then also in front of you have this whole themes and goals. So as it may know, that part of this master plan update is we have 5 themes: vibrancy, connectivity, accessibility, affordability, and resiliency. So throughout all the chapters, they touch upon those themes and their specific context. So I think what we want to achieve this evening is just go through these, briefly. You don't have to finalize it. And just get your first thoughts on, the vision, and make some adjustments if needed, just so there's some guidance as we move forward in crafting this. And then same thing with the themes as well. So depending on time, we just want to make sure that we are trending in the right direction, we're going in the right direction, and we just want some guidance from the commission on anything that's missing or should be subtracted, deleted. So that's where we are right now, and what I'll do is hand it over to Kyle Pimentel from SRPC. As you see he's leading this. Well, we can co-do it if you want. But I guess what we can do right now is just go over the vision. We'll start with that, and then the themes and goals. So let's just start with that, I guess. So, vision. So we have some bullets here. Again, this was taken from the open space and water chapter, the current ones, the one that the commission's worked on this past fall, and also, or spring as well, and then what we have on the books right now on 2020. So I guess we'll just go, I don't know how you want to approach this, if you want to do bullet by bullet, or just kind of...
So I think the bulleted items were just actual text pulled out of the two plans, is that correct? Yeah, so we've seen, that's stuff we wrote, or it came out of the water resources plan, so.
And the open space, correct.
On the open space plan, so do we just want to take a few minutes for people to read the actual vision statement and see, maybe just have people read through both the bullets and the vision statement for about 5 minutes, and then we can have people see if there's some things that seem to be missing. All right, I think we could dig into the vision statement. People want to have some, yeah, you wrote some stuff down. Julie.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the first pieces are from the open space plan, which we all spent a lot of time on. It was the water resources chapter points that I think could be maybe split up and kind of be more specific about why we value these things. So I was just tearing apart that second to last bullet and writing something more like we will protect surface water resources because they make our town resilient to environmental threats, and maybe something about how they are scenically appealing, and there is scenic value to things like wetlands and rivers and streams.
Yeah, just kind of point, we will put that narrative format, so as we do develop this, so it's just, for discussion purposes, we're just doing the bullets, so yeah. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Continental SRPC. So the bullets are really just there to provide guidance on how
Great.
we develop the vision statement.
Mm-hmm.
This won't look like this,
Cool.
as we move forward. We just wanted to show folks, like, how did you come up with the vision? So we tried to take some of the big sort of high-level items in both of the chapters, put them there, and take key phrases. And we had a longer vision, but that we had sent around, and Ellen had done some wordsmithing, which I always appreciate to sort of, brevity is king sometimes. So that's why those bullets are there.
Great. Yeah, so I think an important point would be the resiliency value of those surface water resources like our streams, rivers, and swamps and wetlands. I did a 4-day course on beavers recently and how much their ability to, go out and create streams make us resilient to wildfires, which there were wildfires burning. I mean, we know California is awful right now, but Exeter had fires recently, and the more we can keep our land wet, the more resilient we can be.
I always like to say nature's hydrologists.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Gotta let them do their thing.
I do think we probably have to put groundwater in I think that's missing from the vision
Groundwater.
statement, which I might have.
Can we include beavers in the water part?
yeah. Let nature do its work.
Yes.
Any others? Thoughts? I mean, we'll have a chance to see this again, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just a
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, this is just more
Getting our
for
vision.
giving
Yeah.
us guidance.
Yeah.
If we're going the right way or not.
Another piece that comes into it is just buffers along water too. I just watched the construction at the end of Grant Road there going up along the river, and it just makes me think about wanting to protect the river's edges in Newmarket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other specifics this time? Okay, cool. So,
Just one
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
on that,
keep
just
going,
to
yeah.
make sure I
Yeah.
have my notes right.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the vision statement, what I'm hearing is that you want to make sure that there's resiliency values on surface waters, groundwater, and buffers around streams is the 3 items that need to be woven into the vision statement. Okay.
Yeah.
sounds good.
If there's nothing else on the vision, then we'll move to the themes. I guess we'll just start with vibrancy. Just folks out there who are not looking at this, we collectively, as a bunch of different committees, agreed upon these definitions that we have. So vibrancy is defined as a vibrant community. It's one that exudes energy and is full of activity and life, is welcoming and friendly to all ages, supports cultural diversity, and provides economic opportunities. So again, through each chapter there's going to be different contexts and what that means, but that's the general kind of definition that we're going with. So under vibrancy we have enhanced public engagement, promote recreation areas, promote natural resources, and support biodiversity through conservation. So let's just start with the first one, enhance public engagement. Any thoughts on that one?
I think we'd say add field trips to workshop, like in front of workshops, say through field trips, workshops,
Okay.
surveys. Does that mean asking people questions? Is that what that means?
Let's see, increase opportunities of residents participating in water through work. Yes, questionnaires.
I was thinking about it as getting people outside on walks, field trips, walks,
Events.
events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find myself still talking about the field trip that the Concon did for the New Hampshire Saves the Rain years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think volunteer citizen science or volunteer, yeah, we could put, yeah, citizen science would be great. We can count spat, we did that.
We did that.
We could do remote connectivity, probably goes here, I guess. Like stewardship work days or however, whatever we want to call it, stewardship work days.
Great, so
Okay.
next one is promote recreation areas. So expand and enhance recreational access to rivers, trails, and conserve areas to foster community and stewardship. This comes from the water resource chapter. Any thoughts on that?
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
Great. Next one is promote natural resources, again from the water resource chapter. And it says protect, promote the scenic designation of the Lamprey River. Wonder if you,
Yeah, I was gonna say, how can we make that all encompassing? We've got wetlands,
Yeah.
rivers, streams.
Yeah, I think I would just make the list of all the freshwater, wetland, salt marsh, you know, the list of habitats we have.
Yeah.
maybe there's a kind of a universal term we can put in there. Encompasses that.
Mhm.
Or we enumerate it, so, but understood. Support biodiversity through conservation, so prioritize habitat protection and support ecosystems in the Great Bay Estuary, strengthening community pride and stewardship. This is from the open space chapter.
Sounds good.
Good.
I would, can we change the word pride to engagement, strengthen community engagement? Because I think that's, we kind of want people engaged, which
Mhm.
reflects what we've set up above.
Not just proud of it, yeah.
Not just being proud of it, yeah. Come and help. Go out and see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So moving on to the next theme is connectivity. So a connected community that has efficient and safe links to daily needs such as between home, job, shopping, school, services, parks, and open space, and provides welcoming and inclusive public spaces for social interaction. First kind of sub-goal we have there is promote wildlife corridors, enhance connectivity between habitats by preserving natural spaces, the open space plan. Thoughts on that?
Good.
Great. Next one is expanding trail networks, develop trails and interconnections between trail systems that link built and natural assets. I guess maybe it's already implied, but it's more a human focus. But the first one we talked about wildlife, and this one's more anthropogenic. So.
Do we want to say something in there about the potential for community trail network connection?
Maybe that links
You
community.
mean community-wide as well, so between communities maybe?
Yeah, like Durham.
Yeah. So can we add in there, so we're saying between, not only between built and natural assets, but we want to say throughout town, but also between
the greater
neighboring
communities.
communities.
Yeah, greater, whatever, Great Bay Estuary, whatever, even Newfields with Neil Mill.
Just greater surrounding communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, within Newmarket.
You could just say within and
outside-
between
Within and
communities.
outside Newmarket.
Within Newmarket.
Yeah.
Great. Yep. And then next one is improve aquatic crossings, restore stream crossings to support biodiversity and reduce flooding risk. I would also maybe
Culverts.
improve public safety maybe too, I guess.
Sure.
Great. Third goal, accessibility. An accessible community has an environment that is meaningful and usable for as many people as possible. So the first one is develop inclusive open spaces. Develop accessible parks and trails, and upgrade infrastructure for safe and accessible access to natural and recreational assets. This is from the open space plan.
Sounds good.
Okay. Next one is enhancing water resource education. Promotes outreach and information about conservation, environmental stewardship, and water quality. Okay, and then the next one is increase access to waterways. Improve infrastructure and recreational use that is accessible. Okay, hearing none, moving on. Affordability. An affordable community is where people can live comfortably without financial difficulty. So the first bullet is incorporate sustainable land use changes, balanced out development, housing, open space, and conservation in strategic ways that ensure affordable living options. Affordable and healthy, maybe?
So what was that?
Healthy?
Healthy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking,
Because that can include those open spaces and making sure you have access to being able to live a healthy life. Walkability, yeah. Yeah.
Then conservation-based economic development, explore pathways to support the local economy with eco and agro-tourism that benefit the community.
Did you mean a question mark after open space?
Yeah.
Does that fall into open space?
I think so in a way. I mean, again, it might be some cross-pollination here, from like economic development, but I think how open space contributes to that would be in this manner.
Seems good.
I think I had assumed that question mark that's where it came from. The next one, develop and expand conservation partnerships. Collaborate with regional, state, and federal partners, organizations, and agencies to expand opportunities for funding community investments. On both chapters.
I think not just funding too, just all opportunities to collaborate, events and beyond.
Yeah. Great. Next, resiliency. Being resilient means that resilient communities can withstand, recover, and adjust to adversity and change. First one we have is develop and implement climate strategies. Develop regular assessments of community vulnerability and to aid in future planning investments. Preserve water, wetlands, and floodplains. Develop plans and actions to protect these natural areas to enhance ecological resilience and mitigate flood risk. Next one being regional water management collaborations. Work with other communities on regional efforts to address shared challenges with water resources. Final, ecosystem restoration, develop projects that strengthen natural assets and resources. So is there anything that we're missing as we went through those different themes? Anything that's sprung in mind? That doesn't have to be answered tonight.
Yeah.
You email us as you think about this.
One thing that comes to the top of my mind with the accessibility, not just creating the accessibility, but the awareness.
Yeah.
Coming up with our previous discussion with the waypoints, yeah. Yep.
And marketing that they're there.
Yeah, especially if they become ADA accessible and those things too, really making it our community aware of where to go.
The one thing that I was looking at is, or didn't see, is integrating some of our stuff with surrounding communities and the collaboration between the two.
That came up in other committees too, and I think where that really fits well is in resiliency.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
You
And-
talked a lot about wildlife corridors, for instance, between here in Durham or here in the Walker Trails for us.
Yeah.
You got that to us earlier.
Yeah, when the policy and commission adopted the pathways of people and nature. So yeah, definitely find spaces for both wildlife and us humans.
Resiliency and connectivity too.
Yes.
That's another
Yep.
piece it fits under.
All right, well, good job. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Time, and
Moving
again,
along.
we're going to take your comments, we're going to work on this, and then, we'll get something back to you, if not February, March. We'll have something a lot more robust, so.
Okay, so more of the draft of the chapter itself?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we'll start working on that, yeah. And share with you all kind of what the housing chapter is already completed, and that'll give you a good idea of what it's going to look like. So from a formatting standpoint. So I'll share that with you online. So part of this whole update is the master plan is going to be online. We have a dedicated website to it. The SRPC is hosting. So
Is the housing chapter online?
it is, yes. So I'll share that. And so anyways, again, it's our goal to become more accessible. So, but again, that'll give you an idea of what formatting is going to look like ultimately. So,
Thanks, Bart.
thank you.
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you, Bart.
Well, I was just going to say, would it be helpful if I just took a minute and just summarize this real quick, just to make sure there was anything
Sure.
missing?
Go for it.
I'm not the fastest typer. So for vibrancy, just adding on the enhancing public engagement, things like field trips and events, volunteer citizen science efforts, stewardship workdays. Under the promoting natural resources, being more inclusive on all water resources such as freshwater wetland systems, salt marshes, freshwater and tidal river systems. We'll come up with something that's just more inclusive. Adding that last bullet, community engagement, instead of community pride. On connectivity, on the second bullet, just adding in the link in natural assets in Newmarket and the surrounding communities. And then on the last bullet, adding in public safety. Nothing on, well, there is what, I'll get to that in a minute. But skipping down to affordability, the first bullet, just adding affordable and healthy living options. And then on the last bullet, not just the funding to expanding on opportunities for funding, but just making sure that there's a focus on expansion for all opportunities, so it's not just focused on the funding piece. And then some other broader comments on the affordability piece, just making sure that they're adding in somewhere about raising awareness through marketing. I really love the idea of wayfinding. I live in Dover, and what they have done with their wayfinding is tremendous. All the parks are branded the same, the signs look all the same, where you are, depending on where you are in the city. For folks that are visiting, it's a great resource, so I think it's a great idea. And then the last, on the resiliency and connectivity, just making sure that it comes through, that there's an integration with the surrounding communities. Anything that I missed?
Perfect.
Awesome. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are you going to say anything about the recreation chapter? Excuse me. Or mine? We have the questions I sent you, and you've had a couple of opportunities there were these series of questions that the rec committee wants to hear back from, and I compiled them. And I sent out what I compiled. Does anybody have a chance to add any more? It's pretty straightforward. Is there anything else?
I don't have it in front of me now.
Yeah, okay, so we'll send this off. Bart and I also met with Stephen, Stratford Regional Planning Commission staff person for the Recreation Chapter, and they had a list of about, I don't know, 10 properties that some were town-owned and some are private, and just to see if we knew anything about, what's happening on those properties and if there's opportunities for fields or other kind of outdoor recreation. So we just went through them with Stephen and gave him some feedback. They weren't any of the properties that we steward. The only one that sort of was in our realm was Leary, which is part of the Falls Brook system, which we're going to hopefully at some point launch a bigger effort to analyze that area. So we provided feedback in that way. Yeah, we're really trying to bring the idea of trails and trail connectivity to the rec chapter as well. So that's kind of a big piece. Yeah, I guess that was it. The rec chapter.
Good summary. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bart. All right. Any other questions on master plan stuff? All right, so we'll move along. So land stewardship, Heron Point boundary survey. The draft is done. I sent you an email. It's really big, so it's really hard to print out, but you can kind of look at it. So Bart and I are going to meet, and Bridget will meet with Heron Point Estates, Judy Prince, who's the president, in a couple weeks. It was supposed to be last week. I couldn't do it. So in 2 weeks. There are some encroachments onto the town property, but some of those may have been there since we got the property, and there was never a baseline documentation, which tends to document where things were. And so we'll talk with them and explore opportunities to figure out what to do in terms of some of those encroachments. So it's not a huge worry. It's just something we do need to sort out, and I think they would be happy to get it all figured out too, because they weren't sure where the boundaries were. So I think it'll be a good conversation. And the surveyor, Paul, I think it's a really nice survey. So he did a really good job. And once we have that conversation with Heron Point Estates, then he'll go back out and actually put any of the missing monuments. And we can also and make sure we flag so we all know where the boundaries are. So that's moving along well. I think that's all I had. And maybe I'll talk when we meet, we'll talk about the gate, and you had mentioned people parking on the street, and just get their feedback on what do they think about the gate.
Yeah.
One of the things Bart and I talked about was, could we just not have the gate? And if people aren't supposed to be there except dawn to dusk, does that work? Or not, or would they not like that, because then people could drive in there, but I don't know. Anyway, we can explore.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing we should think about is, do we want to maybe have the small group, maybe Colin, since you've been involved, and Bart, did we talk to the abutters and start asking about potential trail access? Do we want to go ahead with that? Bart, do you want to say anything to that? Thanks, Kyle. And Liz.
So, something to bring up with the association too. For the Riverfront chapter, we're actually reaching out to them as a direct abutter to Heron Point. We want to make sure that their voices are heard through this process. So, but I think it's a good opportunity to have that, in addition to what you were talking about have that relationship start, those conversations and continue forward. So I think, having a small group from the commission, because we want to be respectful of them too. So we want to make sure that we can maybe try to find some kind of compromise. And if we can't find anything, then we know we tried. And we still have like a connection with them. Then as we, pursue other options maybe. As discussed earlier this evening, so I think it's a fabulous idea.
Okay, so we'll maybe
Do
try.
you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah,
to touch base with John?
Yeah, and then we can see if we can't get together with them and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, that sound good, everybody? That we need to pursue that? Okay, cool, great, thank you. I don't have anything else on land stewardship except the Wigan Farm Boardwalk. Unfortunately, it got too cold. It was too hot, and then it got too cold. Then it got really cold. Excuse me. So hopefully they're going to do it in early March. If the ground thaws, it has to be a little bit later. So I'll let you know. We'll get some volunteers to help with that.
Deadline in April.
Yeah, I'm trying to check with Fish and Game when we have to do it before the turtles start moving around. So I think we have a little bit of time in March, but it'll be real tight. Any other stewardship stuff? Anybody have? Okay, let's go on to the minutes. Anybody, I didn't have any changes to either sets of minutes. Thank you, Sue. This is for December 12th. Let's start with those. No, sorry.
No,
November
November
my
14th.
fog. November 14th, 2024. Have a motion to approve as written?
So moved.
Second for Chris. Any discussion? Changes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Very good. December 12th, 2024.
Ditto.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Oh, you're not a voting member tonight, sorry. Appreciate it, though.
I thought I'd get away with it.
All right, second?
Paying attention.
Second by Zach. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
That will be listed in the minutes.
So,
As a deal.
so Sue is retiring. I'm taking our minutes, sadly. Yes. Yeah, we have to approve that. So did you say 13 years, 14 years?
It was 13 a while
13,
ago.
wow.
So it might be, we're pushing into 14 maybe.
Not all in here.
So
No, not all in here. I have many, we'll be shredding.
So we didn't have time to prepare for that, so I asked her if she'd come back to the next meeting so we could formally thank you and really appreciate your minutes. Have been awesome. And because you're really interested in the Conservation Commission, so it's been really great.
Now you're going to be an alternate member?
You know, I could do that.
That'll be great. That'd be great. Thank you, Sue. And yeah, we'll do something next time. Bridget and maybe an intern are going to take minutes for us in the interim, and then the position will be posted. So is that correct?
Yeah, so we'll
Bart?
be posting this soon.
Yeah.
If you know anybody who loves this kind of work.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. And thank you, Bridget, for stepping in too. Yeah, Sue, I don't know. We'll chat more next time.
I was trying to remember. I think it was Drew who was the chair. And there were no minutes. I had to do like 9 months back.
Oh.
So every month I did a new meeting and then an old meeting.
And you weren't
Drew
at
gave
the old
me-
meetings. You weren't at the old
I
meetings.
wasn't.
Yeah,
And
so you
the
have no.
tapes, I got, actually, I think it was CDs.
Oh.
Just burned CDs. And the minutes, the agenda was where Drew wrote in the little tiny pen, he wrote everything on his agenda. So he made copies of those for me so that I could try to figure out who was sitting at the table.
Some improvements.
Some improvements since then.
Gosh, thanks, though. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice having you, but maybe we can have you back as a member. Financial summary, I just got that this week, so let's see. The balance in the Conservation Fund is $133,074.05, and the Shanda Fund, $4,621.11, for a total of $137,695.16. It's mostly interest, and we paid out $1,500 to Stakes and Stones, which is the surveyor. That was back in December. I don't think we've had anything in January yet. General fund balance is $3,624.60. And we do have to approve the Southeast Land Trust monitored 3 easements for us this year. So they did Nostrum, Hilton, and we had them do Piscasset River Lozelle. And we'd approved $1,000 for the 2, and then we approved $500 out of the Conservation Fund. But their total invoice for all 3 was $1,119.38. So I think we could take it all out of the general fund if we want to approve that. We have plenty of money in there.
I was hoping for a vacation, but okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Second.
invoice from SALT.
Second by
Second.
Melissa. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. That worked out really well. They do really nice reports, and it's really helpful that they do the reports. Yeah. So, okay, good. All right. Moving along. All right, great. We're, just make sure I didn't miss anything there. Committee of Board reports. Town Council, Brian.
Town Council hasn't met this month. We canceled our meeting this month just because there was literally nothing on the agenda yet. So, our next meeting will be this upcoming Wednesday. That'll be our first official meeting of the year.
All right. Planning Board, Planning Department, any more updates?
Yeah, so last planning board meeting, planning board just looking at the zoning, so just continuing that effort. The plan now is to work on just the downtown corridor, so from North Main Street down to the car wash, Exit Road. So we'll take a couple more months to look at that and make the recommendation to town council. Then after that, they'll look at the other changes, so they figured to split it up. A more prudent approach. So, that's really it. I know next month, let's talk to Paul Beverson on. He's actually was contracted with Mitchell.
Right. Yeah.
So planning board will be getting that. It's going to be 4 different applications just because of different ownerships of the land there. So there's boundary line adjustments just to make sure that it all works out. So we'll be reviewing that.
Stakes and stones.
Stakes and Stones, yeah. Great name.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's interesting.
So that's moving forward.
That's excellent.
Kind of
Yeah.
an update there.
Yeah.
And then Jeff and I, we're still working on updating the wetland ordinance. We're taking a look at it, see if there's any opportunities to improve upon it. Specifically, adding a setback to the buffer. So we're looking to kind of work on that next month or so, and then try to get something to plan board to look at. So, and other than that, new commissioner. So we have a vacancy at SRPC Board of Commissioners. We have a nomination coming. Sarah Reitzman. She lives in town. She works at New Hampshire Housing. She used to work for the Workforce Housing Coalition, Greater Seacoast. So, plan board will review her letter of interest coming up, and then that's really it. Any questions out there? Development planning, community development on your mind?
I'll just add, Mark West is going to come to our meeting in February to present the prime wetlands maps. He probably would have had it tonight, but I said we had too much tonight. Can you just, because I'm not entirely clear myself with the process, so Mark will have these new maps and a report. What is the next step once we agree that those are good?
We go, probably plan board, they'll take a look at it and make their recommendations to town council, kind of a traditional zoning update.
Okay.
Because it is a zoning amendment, so we bring it to the plan board, they look at it, review it, make their recommendation. I imagine nothing's going to change, we're just going to look at it, make sure, and then they forward their recommendation to town council and they will vote upon change.
Okay. I know we have to do outreach to the abutters.
Yes.
So do we do that before it goes to the planning board?
We can do it twice, probably.
Okay.
We can either do it during the planning board, so because they're going to have a public hearing too.
Okay.
And then also a town council
Okay.
during that.
We actually have to do a mailing to the abutters, so.
That's what, yeah, so most likely we could do it twice, probably by statute. You'd have to do it during the town council portion.
Okay. All right, so we'll go back to, after Mark presents, we can.
Probably better to do it in the planning board.
Yeah.
Maybe do it twice.
Okay.
Because even though it might be a little redundant, you just want to give opportunities, and it might be a better venue to work it out in the planning board public hearing, and try to smooth everything out if there is anything to be smoothed out prior to town council review.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll figure that out. All right. See if anything else on my list for that.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Energy and environment. Julie.
I have not been to a meeting. I've been really busy these past couple months, so I don't have anything to update. But I know I did see a little bit from Joe about updating the costs through CPC, but I will hopefully have more updates in February.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
supplement that. Again, a lot of different committees are we're going to have an energy chapter as well for the master plan, so we're working on that as well. Kind of similar process that we went through this evening. So
Yeah,
but
and I know we had kind of written the whole chapter out earlier, and then this whole process started,
Right,
so it's pretty far along, I assume.
Yeah,
or-
exactly.
yeah.
So the
Yeah.
idea would just be kind of transposing what you've already done
Yep.
and fit it into the format that we are working with right now.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. School liaison, Emma.
But if anybody else has anything, I was here usually in meetings, you just let me know. Just kind of way to bring all the kids out. We're squeezed from classes for the day. We have 2 shifts between 9 all the way to 2 p.m. So usually we go to the library, the first store, community church, we go to Heron Point, we go to bench with places, so if like that, just let me know. I can bring it up.
Is it May 3rd, what do you know the date? The first Friday in May?
I want to say,
Or is it the next Friday? That's what I was wondering.
I want to say the 7th, which is the first Friday.
Okay, May 7th.
But I'm sure that is a
That's a Wednesday? It is a Friday, right? It's a Friday.
Yeah, it's always in May.
May 9th, so it's either May 3rd or
Yeah.
Second or ninth.
2nd or 9th.
I'm sorry, I say the 9th, but I can.
Okay, you can just let us know, then we can
Yeah.
put that on our calendar.
And then we're just planning a bunch of spring cleanups, just kind of cleaning up the trails around the rec and stuff like that, and the roads and stuff like that for the spring, now that it's starting to get longer.
Great, any questions for Emma? Thank you. 300 celebration.
I actually, I didn't go in December, and I have removed myself from the committee. So we're looking for a representative who wants to do that. Yeah, it's just been a little busy, so. But it sounds like things are starting to come together. You know, getting funding together, getting the website and commemoratives together, getting some things starting to fall into place. There is a book that's being written that's being worked on as well.
Welcome to join into that committee, but or somebody know.
If anybody wants to be a liaison with them.
Great, all right. Other updates? Chris, you want to talk about the library stuff?
I can give a quick update on the library. I met with Lauren this morning to walk around in there and see exactly what do they have in mind for the space to give to us. It's going to be called Conservation Corner. And Ellen can forward a couple of photographs I took when it's more convenient. I just met this morning, so there was no time to print them out and long meeting. So anyway, when you walk in the library and you would bang a left, there's a whole room that's been revamped. On the back wall, there's a big, gorgeous mirror, and on the other side of the mirror, there's shelving that's like eye height, and all kinds of shelves. And Conservation Corner is going to be at a very graceful corner right back in there. Additionally, if we had artifacts or things that shouldn't be touched, they can be in a glass case, like a barrister's bookshelf that's right also in that room. So what we're thinking of is, for instance, that's where bookmarks can go. That's where things like, coming up soon, the big priority for those displays should be handouts, flyers, and information about Turtle Fest. So I'm thinking getting some things printed and put on foam core that can be on library stands in there that talk about the speakers that we have for Turtle Fest, or bird watching for Turtle Fest, the afternoon walk for Turtle Fest. So that can be kind of a quicker turnaround. Some things in there might be more permanent. And not to shock Lindsay or Bart, but I did talk to Lauren about really advertising and talking and promoting what's going on with Ash Swamp Road, because people continue to ask about the striping and the painting and the flagging and the this and the that. So it seemed like it could be really an interesting opportunity. I'm being punished for not for grabbing this, but to have headshots of you two that I can easily take and put on home.
Contact them. They like turtles.
What's going on in Newmarket and the other.
I'm loving this.
Departments involved.
Yeah. I saw that.
You know?
Yeah,
I wonder if
who's
Fish and
that-
Game has
who's
some
that
turtle
handsome
shells
guy
or
next to
something.
the-
Well, and that
Display
came
in
up
there.
this morning.
I've got a
as well.
beaver skull.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the connection with Heather, the children's librarian, has got crafts and activities to put a sample of the crafter activity there, so it shows people that might say like, oh yeah, I can bring my grandkids over here, my kids over here, the grab and go bag, so a sample can be there to help increase the things that she does with ecology and nature. Our trail maps coming up, but we can also think seasonally, like what's coming up, like even though there's ticks out there right now, like what do we want to do something about tick awareness, bird migration coming out, lighting, whatever. The shorter things we want to do as well as the longer things that we want to do. So anyway, we have a dedicated space and now it's just a matter of get the pictures, drop by your office, and some trail mapping and whatnot. So it's whenever we want to start and whatever we want to do. I'm happy to do photographs and the liaison stuff, not liaison, the schlep, the staples, garment stuff. But anyway, it's a reality. I think conservation part, sports alliterations work. They just work. So that's very important on that. So you can send the photos.
Yeah.
If you don't have a library card, I would suggest getting one. I think it shows we're supporting them as well as them supporting us, and it's free. It helps democracy. And I also wanted to mention the book club. We have the January, February, and March book clubs. 9 people are signed up for the first one, which is January 23rd. So I'm also a proponent of if you've read it or not, go to a book club and just hear what's going on. First one's about bicycling for butterflies. So grab a book, read a good reads online, something or other, and join the group at the library for 6:30, you said? Something like that. So welcome to join the book club.
Where has that been advertised?
Library was the lead on that.
Okay.
And I think we can revamp for the next couple. We can get
Yeah.
more going on social media.
Yeah, I was
Facebook
thinking, I
and
never saw it come
Instagram.
up on social media. I would have loved to see it more.
The townwide newsletter did mention it
Okay.
in the library section.
What the hell's going on in Newmarket?
Maybe somebody at this table signed up to be in it, I think, maybe, or not, maybe not. Anyway, try and think about coming if you want to, and then check out February and March as well.
Yeah, I want to read the February book.
March is Cy Montgomery, and it is about turtles, so we put that one third because it was closest to the turtle fence.
And the February book is really cool. I haven't read it, but I took her class at
Oh, the
UVM,
February book is
so
fantastic.
I want to read that
That's
one.
been for the first one, but the February
Yes.
one is, it's
Trish
Trish
O'Kane's
O'Kane
amazing.
about birds.
She's great, yeah.
I wonder why Julie cared, I don't know.
Birds are kind of cool.
Current dinosaurs, right?
Great, well, if you have any ideas for the library display, please just send ideas, or if you want to create
If you have
something and
stuff
send
in
it.
your basement
Yeah,
somehow
stuff
that
you
want
wanna
to put on display.
provide.
Yeah.
That's great, thanks for the lead
Yeah.
on that, Chris. Do we want to jump in to get an update on Turtle Fest? Do you have any update on the t-shirt design, I guess?
No, and my bad, because I know that you had asked to touch one of the cotton. I just
That's
did not have time to get there and get one. I don't want to keep it more days than just the day
Yeah,
of the meeting. I'll bring it to the February meeting, and John will have the design ready for us to look at before it goes to them, like before Valentine's Day.
Okay, because we want to use that for put that on our flyer too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so forth, so.
Yeah, so he can, I'll ask him if he can have that ready before the actual thing for the shirts.
That would be great. I
That
think
way
that'd be
we can get
helpful
more
because we could then
flyers
do
up
our
and out
flyer.
and running.
Yeah, cool. And we have a little group working on this, so we need to have another meeting in January, so we'll get that scheduled.
Yeah, do you have another meeting with the committee that has Bart and Laura?
No, we got to schedule that soon, next couple
Okay.
weeks, so we'll get that going.
Okay.
Do you want to do a little UNH capstone update, where we are with that?
Yeah,
Zach?
so there's a ton of interest in the project, which is great. This is for the big night when all amphibians migrate, having a unique project help identify where those locations will be around town and then organize with volunteers. So we put together a proposal and we've got a ton of interest, and we're actually splitting them into two groups. There'll be a group of students that have like background in GIS that will be involved in the mapping. And then there's a group of students that are more kind of like marketing communications that will be involved in the like volunteer organization, engaging local businesses. So I think it would be awesome to have maybe like March, April timeframe, maybe a dedication to the big night element or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so we could include that. We're gonna meet with students, I think next week, so we can include that like as part of the research, like we need great books for all different age ranges to include there.
We'll get, because we've got social presence too, so we should.
Yeah, social media stuff.
From a marketing standpoint.
Social, like
Instagram,
library, or
Facebook and Instagram for conservation.
oh, okay, that's awesome. Okay, that's great. Yeah, they're like engagements at high school too would be suitable, so.
Yeah.
Just like we're both big dogs, since we're gonna do that too.
Big day, some birding.
Yeah, it's exciting that the students are really interested. So it seems like we were at the top, I think. That's what she said.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Lake amphibians.
Yep. Let's see, was there anything else? Anybody else have anything else to update we didn't cover? All right. Do you want to give, sorry, can you give another quick update on Ash Swamp? Because we've had some grants that we didn't get, sadly.
Did you already share that?
No, we haven't, I don't think we've talked about them.
Okay, so we were working with New Hampshire Fish and Game to submit an application for America the Beautiful Challenge. And our project, the Fish and Game's project included the Ashmont Road culvert, but also 3 other projects. So it was bigger than just that one, but that one did not get selected to move forward. Official word should be coming out soon. I think official determination was going to come out in January. So it's a mostly no, but I'm not totally losing hope, maybe. And then I also submitted an application to the New Hampshire DES Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund, ARM Fund, and that one was also was selected by the selection committee, the ARM selection committee. They see the benefit and they recommended that it go forward, but then when it got to federal review by Army Corps, they kicked it back. And they had some official comments. Actually just got an email from Emily at ARM today, this afternoon. I haven't read through it, but we are going to meet with them to discuss some potential modifications to the application so that it can check the right boxes and move it forward. So that one's a no right now, but again, there's a chance. So
Was that to apply next year or even this round?
No, this round. She said what I got from the portion of the email I read is, here is the letter with the comments. There are some specific items that need to be addressed, and we'd want to work with you to see if we can do that.
Oh, wow.
So once I actually read through what those items are, and if they're things that we can kind of make a case that the project does provide that benefit or that value, then we can kind of keep it in the running. So it's not kicked out yet, but we need to make sure that it actually does fit the criteria before they can give it a blessing, and then maybe we could get the funding for that. We do have, the good news part of this is that we do have the grant funding from the Nature Conservancy, so we are moving ahead with design. The field work has already been going on out there. Natural resource delineation, topographic survey, and geotechnical work was all done before Christmas. So Wright Pierce is working on the engineering for that, and they're going to be getting into the H&H analysis and site assessment work over the next few months. So that is advancing, and we're still working with the Nature Conservancy to advance the design, it's not through permitting, but some preliminary permitting. And then hopefully we'll have a very well vetted project that's ready to just take to the next step, and we can pursue alternative funding sources.
That's good news, that maybe an arm might come through, that's awesome.
Yeah. Bad news, good news. We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Extra work, thank you for the extra work.
Yeah, right, yeah,
that's
I
great.
know. It's worth it, though, gosh.
Yep.
Good to get done. Great, thank you very much, Lindsay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? So moved, all in favor, say aye.
Melissa and David.